In this video, we'll make an HTML5 and CSS3 responsive photography website. First, we'll lay out all of the HTML and then the CSS, adding our media queries last to give the website its responsiveness and mobile version. Okay guys, so let's take a look at how the photography website appears on my desktop computer here. So at the top of the website, the first thing that we'll notice is this gigantic picture that's always going to display at 100% of the screen, no matter how wide or narrow the website is. So later in the video, you'll learn how to add your own picture in here to replace this road image that I like, and then you'll also learn how to change the photography and my pictures text. So in the upper left hand corner we have our drop down menu that will send us to different sections of the page, but first let's just scroll through it and check out these different sections. So we have an About Me section here with text on the left and an image on the right, and then we have the My Portfolio section, and when we click on one of the portfolio images, it's going to open up in a new window so the image can display at its full size. So as we hover over the images, you'll see that they change color a little bit, which is nice when somebody's checking out your portfolio there. So then we have a services section, the fixed image background that we're seeing, and then the contact me section with social media buttons at the bottom, so you can send people to your Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, wherever you want them to see information about you, your photographs, or whoever you're creating a website for. So now let's try out the navigation menu. So if we click on it, here we go to the About Me section, and then for services, it's going to send us down here to the photography services section. So now let me show you how this image is always going to display at 100%. So if we size the website down around 768 pixels, it's going to change its form so it displays at 100% on tablets and iPhones. So the image at the top, as I said, is always going to be at 100%, but the sections underneath that where we have 2 columns or 3 columns, they're going to shift from the 2 or 3 columns down to the 1 column website for tablets and iPhones and stuff. And let's just scroll through it once more before we get started and see how it's going to appear as the mobile version on an iPhone 7, for example. So we're looking at all of the single column width sections here with the icons and text in a smaller version than it would be at the full size, and then we have the drop down menu, of course, linking us to different sections of the page. Okay, so the one thing that we'll need to get started with the tutorial here are the tutorial starter files. So in the description of this video is going to be a link to my website where you can just download the starter files and then come back to the video so we can get started. So once you download the starter files, go ahead and open it up, and then open up index.html and style.css in your text editor. So go ahead and pause the video if you still need to download the starter files. And then as you can see here, I have index.html and style.css in my text editor, and we'll go over the little bit of code that's included in there for us to get started in just a second. Also, you'll want to open up index.html in your web browser. So I'm using Google Chrome as my web browser, just as an example. And for my text editor, if you'd like to know, I'm using a free program called Sublime Text. So there's a number of ones you can use. Brackets is another really good one that a lot of people swear by. I like the layout of Sublime Text for these videos though. Okay. So now let's go ahead and go over some of the information that's already included in here for us with index.html. So at the top of the document we have our doctype HTML, which spans the whole document. Underneath that we have the head section and body section, including the HTML language tag, which EN is just for English. And then we have the character set. So UTF-8 is a standard character set for the web, and then the meta IE Edge compatibility for Internet Explorer tag, followed by the viewport device with initial scale 1 for mobile websites, and then the title of the website, which I'll show you where that displays in just a second. Underneath that, we're linking to the style sheet that we see here that we'll work on later on in the video. And then we have another CSS style sheet, which I'll get to in just a second. First, let me show you where this bottom link reference is in the head section. Okay, so this is our fave icon, the little image that you're seeing right there, and then the website title, which just says photography, is what we're seeing next to it. So little image is the fave icon, and then the title. So for the fave icon, you typically want to have it pretty small and square. So 40 pixels by 40 pixels is a pretty good size when you're creating your own fave icon image. Okay, so for the font awesome stuff that you're seeing in the downloads, as well as the style sheet in the head section of the HTML document, that's going to be for the icons that we use referencing the social media websites like Facebook and Google Plus and such. Okay, so let's get started with our first tag in the body section of the website, which is where all of our content will display. So our first tag is going to encompass everything that we're seeing at the top of the website. So the big road picture, the photography text, and my pictures along with the navigation in the top left. So this is going to be a section tag, which is an HTML5 tag here. And then we're also going to give this section tag a class so we can use more section tags later and reference each individually in the CSS when we style the website. So we'll just give this section class or section a class called intro, and then within that what we're going to reference next is the navigation here. So we'll just do this with the HTML5 tag called nav, N-A-V, and then within that we'll have our menu icon, so the little kind of hamburger icon in the upper left hand corner we're seeing, and then we'll have the navigation menu links under that. So we'll reference the icon with a simple link tag, which is ahref, but we're not going to link it to anything. So in place of where the URL would normally go, we'll just have the hashtag symbol, and then we'll give this an ID called menu-icon. So we're not going to see that display later until we go to the style sheet with the CSS. But we want to make sure to do that first before we do the links. So the navigation links will be in an unordered list, so that's UL, and then inside of unordered lists we have list items, so just write LI, and then inside of the list items we'll have the links for the navigation menu links that we're seeing here. Okay, and if you're wondering how I'm able to display the tags so quickly in the text editor, once it shows you with the drop down the right thing that you want it to display, just hit enter and it will pop up automatically. So within the list item here, we're going to have our link, and we're going to send this to a different section of the page. So rather than a URL link or linking it to an HTML document, just write hashtag and about, in this case for the about me text that we're seeing right here. Okay, and then if we refresh the document that we're working on, we'll have our first text there. Alright. Okay, so now let's drop down and just add the rest of the list items here. So again, just write LI for list item, and then within that the ahref tag, and we'll just call this one port. So hashtag port, and later we'll see how these links will send us to certain sections of the page. Okay, so just write portfolio for the second navigation link, and then drop down once more. Okay, list item ahref, and we'll just call this one serve SERV for services. Okay, and our last one, list item, and then ahref for our link, and just write hashtag contact for the contact me navigation link. Okay, and then if we refresh the version that we're working on in Google Chrome here, there we have our 4 navigation menu links that later we're going to give a bunch of style to in the CSS along with the menu icon. Okay, so now let's drop down underneath the navigation tag, and what we're going to do is create 2 div classes that will nest the photography text and the my pictures text. So this is still going to be within the section class intro with the navigation and then the text here. So just underneath the nav tag, right, div class, so you can open and close a div, and then div class inner. Okay, and then create a little space, and then within that we're going to have another div class, and we're going to call this div class content. So later in the CSS you'll see why we have 2 different div classes here, but it's going to give us more control when we style the website later. So underneath that, write H1 for heading 1, and then write photography. So in HTML we have H1 being the largest down to H6 being the smallest of the headings, and then the paragraph tag with the letter P, which we'll just write my pictures for in this case. And let me just make this lowercase so we don't have to do that later in the CSS. Okay, so now that the section class intro is finished, which encompasses everything to the bottom of the large road picture at the top of the website, what we can do is link to the first section of the page from our navigation. So that's going to be the About Me section. So what we'll do now is create a tag for where that navigation link is going to send us to, which is basically at the very bottom of the picture just before the About Me section starts. Okay, so just underneath the section class there, we'll do an A tag, but in this case we don't need to do a full link tag with the ahref because we already have that in the navigation. So in order to link to the About section from the About Me navigation link, just write a name and then quotations about without the hashtag and then close. Okay, so now if we go back to the version that we're working on here in Google Chrome, we don't have enough content for us to link us down too far on the page, but if you click on the About Me link, you'll see that it sends us downward a little bit to underneath the My Pictures text. Okay, so now let's create the next section, which is going to be this left column section that we're seeing with the About Me heading and then the paragraph text underneath. So before we do that, let's just create a sort of horizontal rule. Later we'll style this, but just write div class clearfix, and this is going to create kind of like a horizontal rule, as I said, making it so nothing can display parallel to this. So the CSS style that we'll use later for the clearfix is just simply the clear both style. Okay, so we'll add a couple of those as we work down through the website here just to keep everything in line. And then underneath that, let's create our next section class. So this is going to be called section class left dash col, C-O-L, for left column. And then we'll do the heading tag. We'll do H2 in this case. for the About Me text. So just write About Me inside of the H2. Okay, and then drop down, and underneath the H2 we'll do a paragraph tag. Okay, so I'm just going to cheat a little bit. You guys can write this out or write whatever you want in here. I'm just going to save us a little time, paste this information in. Okay. Alright, so now if we refresh the version we're working on here, you'll see their H2 tag for the About Me text and the paragraph text underneath that. So you'll notice there's a little bit of space here at the beginning of this paragraph. So what we'll do internally here, rather than later in the style sheet, is let's create a little style and let's give it some indent. So just write style equals, and then in quotations, text-indent, colon, 6%, and then semicolon to close the style out. Okay, so now when we refresh, it's going to be indented 6% of the page or 6% of the column once we give it a width later on. Okay, so now let's do the picture that we're seeing here of the girl in the hat. So just drop down, and underneath the section class left col for left column, let's do another section class, and we're just going to call this section class sidebar. Because even though it's not really a sidebar like a blog, it's about the same width when next to the left column section. Okay, and then we'll add the image with the image source tag, so img space src. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy the address for this image here. So for all of the images in this tutorial, they're going to be in the description of the video, so you don't have to worry about typing all of these URLs out, since I'm not typing them out myself. So they'll go in order as we're working through the website in the description of the video. Okay, and then if we come back and refresh, here we have the picture, and it's really large in pixels, so it's going to take up the entire screen before we style the sidebar later. So let's drop down underneath the section class sidebar and create another div class clearfix. So I'm just going to cheat a little bit and copy this so we can have our horizontal line here. It's kind of invisible, and then everything will line up nicely. Okay, so go ahead and add your div class clearfix, and then what we'll do is link from the second navigation link. So let's just create another a name tag similar to the about one that we did above for the About Me section. And this one, if you remember from our navigation, is just called port for the portfolio section. So if we just click the portfolio link, there it's going to link us to the top of the portfolio section. And here, if we refresh, it's going to link us down as far as it can, at least for now, until we add the portfolio content. Okay, so now underneath the a name portfolio, let's do our heading 2 tag for the portfolio section, and then we'll do the sort of picture layout for the portfolio. So write H2, and then inside of that write my portfolio. Okay, and then drop down a line, and let's do our section class. Okay, so this is going to be a 1/3 section. Let's call it section class 1-3rd-port for portfolio. Okay, and then each 1/3 port section is going to contain one image for the portfolio. So inside of that, the images will require links for us to open them up in new pages. So when we click on this, it's going to send us to a new page, right? So for the link, we're just going to use the address for that image, which again I'll have in the description of the video. Okay, so we want to have the link on the outside, the ahref tag linking us to that image, and then on the inside we'll have an image tag, so image source, and then for the image that we're seeing on the actual website page, we're going to have from the images that are included in the starter files in the IMG folder. Okay, so this one is just going to be img/photography-1.png. Okay, and then if we refresh, we'll have that first image from the portfolio section down here. Okay, and then if we click on it, it's going to send us to a new page where the full image will display. And later in the CSS, along with laying out the portfolio sections in the 1/3 layout, we're going to add the style for hovering over the image and having it change colors. So actually add target _blank for it to open up in a new web page rather than the same page that the website itself is displaying in. So target equals, in quotations, _blank, that include that in the ahref link to send it to the other page. Okay, so now let's add the rest of our 1/3 port sections. So this is going to get a little repetitive if we type all 6 out. So I'm just going to do a little bit of copying and pasting and changing portfolio to 2, and then I'll get the link here, which again you can get from the description of the video, and then I'll paste it. Okay, and then let's do the next one. Okay, so I'll just copy the second one here. So you guys are welcome to type it out if you want to do it for practice, or you can do what I'm doing and just copy the stuff. Okay, so I'll just paste these a couple of times. So basically, the image is just going to change to photography-4-5-6, and then we'll have the image URLs that we'll link to. Okay, so now if we refresh, we're going to have our images show up, but they're not going to link us just yet. Okay, so let me go ahead and just grab the links for these, and you can do the same in the description of the video. Okay. All right. So one other thing that you can do if you want is you can add an alt and a title tag to images. Alt being what displays if for whatever reason the image couldn't display, and then a title is what would appear on the page when you hover over the image. So that's up to you. Alright, so they're all displaying properly and linking us to different pages in the browser. So that does it for the portfolio section. We'll get to the fun of laying it out later in the CSS, as you know, but now let's drop down to the My Services section. So again, let's add a div class clear fix to make sure that everything lines up properly. And then we'll do the a name for the services section. So div class clear fix and close out the div, and then a name equals, in quotations, serv, and then drop down, and for the my services section here on the left, we're going to make another left column section class. So just write section, and then you can open and close that, and then class equals left dash col, and then drop down, and we'll do our heading 2 tag next for the my services text. Okay, and then drop down, and we'll do our paragraph tag. And I'm just going to refresh. There we get our heading 2 my services text, and then I'll just copy this text here. You can add in whatever you like for now. Okay, and then again, I'm just going to add a little style here, and that's going to be text indent, text dash indent, colon 6%, semicolon. Okay, and then if we refresh, it's going to be indented the same amount as the section that we did above. Okay, so there it is at the very bottom. And then the next section that we're going to do is we're going to create another sidebar class, and then inside of that it's going to be interesting, or get interesting, with how we lay out the services for the photography business here. So just write section class sidebar again. And inside of that, we're going to have another section class, and we're just going to call this section class contact. So underneath the section class contact, what we're going to do is create a list inside of a paragraph tag. So go ahead and just write P, so open and close the paragraph tag, and then let me show you how this is going to kind of work. So everything is going to be inside of this paragraph tag, and then we're going to use the BR tag, which is break for HTML. And basically it's going to go from one line, so let me show you beneath in the contact me section. So it's going to go from one line to like a list that's centered on the page. So let's go ahead and start it, and then you'll see what I mean in a little bit. So the first one is just wedding or weddings portrait. So you can do wedding portraits, weddings. Okay, so wedding portraits, and then let's go ahead and do the BR class. So just write BR class, and then we're going to call it break for the class, because the line is going to break once it gets down to a certain width, and we'll do that later in the style sheet. Okay, so it's going to go from a straight line to kind of this list that we're seeing here. Alright, so I'm just going to paste this stuff in here, and then I'll just paste the breaks to save us some time. So we've got engagements, social events, artistic modeling, school photos, family portraits. Okay, so we'll just create this BR class break in between the lines that we want to drop down to the next line. Okay, good. So now if we come back over here, there we have our list down here. Now because we have the breaks right now, it's going to go down to the next line. Later we'll tell it how to display on the same line and only drop down to a second line and centered when the page drops down in width, so during the responsive flexing. Alright, so now let's drop down and let's do another div class clearfix. Okay, and then once we add the clearfix, let's drop down underneath that and we'll add the a name tag so we can link from the navigation to the contact section. So let's go over and see where that's going to bring us to. So if we just click on the Contact Me navigation link, it's going to send us down to just above where the fixed image section starts, underneath the My Services section. Okay, so let's go with a name contact for the Contact Me link. And that's going to link us from this right here in the unordered list for the navigation. Okay, so now let's go ahead and just add the classes for the fixed image background that we're seeing. So we'll need two classes for this. So let's do section class Parallax. Okay, and then drop down, and within the section class Parallax, we'll do div class Parallax dash inner. Okay, and then close that div out. And that's all we're going to need in the HTML, at least, for the fixed image background that we're scrolling through. The image itself and kind of the space that we're seeing it, as we're going to add in the CSS in the style sheet. Alright, so now let's drop down and let's do another clear fix after the fixed image background section, and then we'll do the Contact Me section. Okay, so div class clearfix, and then drop down and we'll do the heading 2 for the Contact Me text right here. Okay, so H2 Contact Me, and then drop down, and we're going to create the same section class that we used for the services section in the sidebar, which is section class contact, and then we'll do the paragraph tag with the BR class breaks inside of that paragraph tag. Okay, so go ahead and just write P for paragraph, and then we'll do my name. So I'm just going to copy this, and then we'll do a different one for the street address. So my name, and then an email address, as well as the phone number, and then I'll just copy the BR class break and add that in between the name, the email, and the phone number. Okay. And then if you want for the email, what you can do is create a link. So ahref, okay, and then move the email into the link where the quotations are, and we'll want to do or write mail to, whoops, okay, that's good. So mail to colon and then the email address. So when somebody clicks on that email, it's going to prompt their computer's email or whatever they have as default for email, and they can send an email to that address. Okay, so if we go down here and refresh, There we have it, and the email is displaying as a link. Alright, so now let's go ahead and drop down one more line, and we'll do the street address in the paragraph tag, similar to what we did with the contact info above. So I'm just going to copy this street address info and paste it in here. And then we'll do a BR class break after the street here and after the city. Okay. And then you could do one after the zip if you want. That's up to you. If you want the zip to display on the same line or a separate line from the state when it's at its smallest width on, say, a cell phone, for example. Okay. So we've done pretty much every section except for the social media links and then the footer at the bottom with the copyright symbol and the photography text. So let's create another ClearFix class, and then we'll do the social media links. Alright, so just write div class ClearFix, and then drop down and let's start the footer. So the social links will be included in the footer here of the website rather than in the contact me section with the text, which will give it a little bit of space above the social links. So that's the HTML5 tag footer, and then within that we're going to create an unordered list similar to the navigation at the top of the website. But we're going to display the list items in line rather than having them drop down and block, as we say in CSS. So write UL open and close for the unordered list, and we're going to give this unordered list a class. So it's going to be UL class social. And then you can drop down and create your list item. So inside of the list item we're going to have a link. So it's the ahref. And the link in this case is going to go to my Facebook account, or for w3newbie.com. So I'll just paste that in there. And then inside of the link, so we have the list item, the link with the a tag, and then we're going to have an I class. So this stands for italic, but we're going to use the I tag to display the font awesome icons. Okay, so I class and then FA space FA dash Facebook, and then if we just have to make sure to close the I class out there, and then let's go ahead and refresh, and we'll have the little Facebook link displaying at the bottom in an unordered list similar to the navigation at the top. So there goes our little Facebook link at the very bottom there. Okay. So if you're wondering how this is possible, this is from the fonts folder. So you don't need to do anything with that or the Font Awesome CSS, but that's a little plugin that we're using here that's referenced in the head of the website at the top of the HTML document to display the icons that we're seeing. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste the list item here to save us a little time. And then I'll change the link as well as the I class to reference the icon. So this one for Google Plus is just going to be FA space FA dash Google dash plus. Okay, and then I'll drop down and let's do the rest of them here. So we have 5 in total. Okay, so the last one is for Instagram. Second to last is YouTube, and then Twitter is the middle one. Right, and then if we go and or at least I'll just go back here and copy the links for my pages, but you can put in whichever links you like for the social accounts. Okay, and then if you want to send people to a new page, just remember to add the target underscore blank in the link tag, the ahref tag. So target equals, and then in quotations, underscore blank, and that will send people to a new page when they click on the social media links, similar to the images in the portfolio section. Okay, so now we have all of our links displaying down here, and the only thing we have left to do at the bottom of the page is the copyright and photography symbols. So let me just show you really quick, just so there isn't any confusion on the target underscore blank tag here. Okay, so just target and in quotations underscore blank, and then it's going to send us to a new page, which I recommend when you're using the social media links. So for example, with the navigation, you don't want to do that. You want to keep people inside of your website on the same page or the same tab in their browser. In this case, with social media, we'll want to send them to a new tab. Okay, so let's add our second footer section. So just do the footer HTML5 tag again, and we're going to give this a class called second. So footer class second, and this is going to be the black section at the bottom of the website, or kind of the off black, and it's just going to have the copyright symbol and then the photography text there. So for the copyright symbol in HTML, just write ampersand, copy, semicolon, and then write photography period, or whatever you want to call the website, and you can also put the date in here for the copyright stuff. Okay, so that does it for all of our HTML. Now we can kind of look at what we did here in laying out all of the content for the website before we move over to the style.css sheet and get started with styling the website and creating all of the sections and stuff. So let me just scroll up here, and then let's just take a look at a few of the links to make sure they're sending us the right sections of the page. So there we have the About Me link, portfolio, and then services. All right, so let's take a look at the finished version again here, and then we'll go over to the style sheet. Alright, so just move over to style.css, and as we're working down through the style sheet, we'll be referencing the index.html document. So you can leave that open still, or you can close it. It's up to you. So the first thing that you'll notice when you open up style.css is we have some CSS included for us here already. At the top of the document, we have the import URLs there, and that's going to reference the font families that we're using from Google Fonts, and then we have the HTML, which is the document itself, and then the body tags referenced here with margin 0 and padding 0. So that's going to take away any inherent margin or padding that the web browser wants to give to the body or HTML document itself, and you'll see that, for example, the photograph here goes all the way up to the side of the screen. Because of that. And then we have just height and width at 100%. Okay, so let's get some of the simple stuff out of the way first in our heading and paragraph and image style. So we'll start with the heading 2 style. All right. Which the first one is the About Me text here. Alright, so just write H2 and then open and close the swirly brackets, and that's going to be referencing the heading 2 tag right here. And we'll give this a font family from the Google fonts above called, in a single colon here, or quotation rather, Playfair Display, and then write comma serif. So serif or sans serif will be the default font if for whatever reason the Google font doesn't display. And then we'll give it a font size of 200% of the inherent size that the web browser gives the text. So there we have the text there a little larger. And then we'll go to font weight for good measure of 700, which is kind of a bold weight, and 300 or 400 is going to be a thin type of weight. And then we're going to give it a color of 2C, 2C, 2C as the hex value, which is kind of a dark gray or off black color. Then we'll align the text in the center of the page, and let's give it a text decoration of underline. Alright, and then we can go ahead and refresh, and let's see how it looks. So there we go, and I think that the Playfair Display font family is kind of classy and in line with sort of a black and white photography feel here. So let me just create a little space, and then we'll do the paragraph style. So just drop down and write P, open and close the swirly brackets, and we'll give this a font family. The other Google font family, which is called Railway. So that's for the paragraph tag right here that we're seeing with just P. So write font family, Railway, and then comma serif or sans serif, semicolon. Then drop down and write color, 2C, 2C, 2C. And we'll give this a font size of 140%. And then a line height to create a little space in between the lines of 180%, a little larger than the font size itself. Okay, so that's going to kind of space it out a little bit there. And then we'll do the text align. So rather than doing a text align center like the H2 headings, we'll do text align justify. So text align justify, and that's going to give it kind of the newspaper feel with the straight up and down lines on the sides of the page. Okay, and then for good measure, let's just give it a font weight of 300, which is kind of a thin weight, like a narrow font. Okay, so now let's drop down, and next let's do the image tag. So right now, the image is going to appear at its full size, and it's not going to flex down with the width of the screen, similar to the paragraph text sizing down. So we'll reference the image tag here with just IMG, open and close the brackets, and then we'll tell it to text align center, and then the most important thing is max width 100% of the page or the section that it's embedded in, and then we'll give it a height and width of auto. Okay, so now if you were to refresh, the image is going to be kind of sized with the page itself 100%. Except for the smaller ones, unless they were the size of the image, they would still be their normal size, not stretching to the width. If we did minimum width 100%, the smaller ones would flex to the full width. So let's move down to the first section of the website, which is called Section Class Intro. So that's going to encompass 100% of the height and width at the top of the website, from however tall or narrow the web page is, as you know from the beginning of the tutorial. Alright, so for classes, section class or div class, whatever class you're using. We'll reference that in the CSS with a period. So here we have the class, and then ID. Remember, instead of class, it's the hashtag. So we'll reference this with .intro for the intro class, and then write height 100%, width 100%. We'll give it a margin of auto, and then we'll do the background image. So remember that the URL for the images that we're using are in the description of the video. So go ahead and just grab the URL from the video description, and then after you enter the URL, we'll just put a little more info in after the parentheses here. So write no-repeat, so that the image is only going to display once, and then 50% and 50%. So that's going to center it on the screen. So now we'll see our background image here, but we're only seeing kind of a small section of the picture since it's a gigantic image, and we want to see 100% of it. Okay, so we'll just have to add a couple more tricks here with the CSS to get it to display like the finished version. So drop down to the next line and write background dash size and then write cover. Okay, and then drop down once more. So now it's going to cover it, right? But we still have a little bit of top margin. So write display table and then top 0. Okay, and then if we refresh, there we have it at the top of the website. Alright, so we'll just add a little more style to the inner section here, or for the inner section, before we add the navigation links and then the photography and my pictures text. So just write .intro, and then we'll just do the inner class beneath that. So we're not exactly going in line here, but let's get this out of the way, and then we'll do the navigation. Okay, so we're going to create a section for the text here that sits on top of the image. So write display table dash cell vertical align middle, and then give it a width of, so there we go, it's displaying right in the center. Okay, and then we're going to give this a width, so width of 100%, and then max width none. So you can make the text as large as you want. Alright, so now you see it's kind of pushed off to the side of the page. So what we need to do is style the content class, which is inside of the inner class. So that's this div class right here. So we're just going to give that a max width, so it will kind of center on the page here. So just write .content max dash width 600 pixels, and then drop down and write margin auto. Okay, and then refresh. Now it's kind of moved over a little bit, but what we'll need to do next is let's style the heading 1 text and the pictures text, and then we'll do the navigation afterwards. Okay, so drop down and write H1, and we're going to use the Playfair display font family. similar to the heading 2 tag. So we'll just reference that with H1 and then font family, single quotation, Playfair display, and then afterwards comma serif, or you can write sans serif. Okay, and then semicolon, and then let's give it its size. So we'll give it a size of 300%, a font weight of 700, similar to the heading 2 font weight, which is like a bold. Okay, and then let's give the font some color. So we'll just give it plain white, which the hex value for that is FFF. Okay, and then drop down and we'll tell the text to text align center next. Okay, so drop down a line and write text align center. And then we'll give it a padding of 2% all around. Okay, so there we have it displaying nice in center. We'll just have it the size increase, and we'll increase the size a little bit more. First, let's do a text shadow. So we're going to give this a large text shadow around it because the background is kind of light where the photography text displays. So just write 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 250 pixels, and then the color of the shadow, so that's going to be black 000. So now we have kind of a shadow surrounding this, 250 pixels in diameter. So it might be kind of hard to see, but if you refresh your screen, you might be able to see the text in the shadow appear before the photograph, or you can just take the photograph away to see it. Alright, so now let's do the paragraph text inside of the content class here, and we'll just make it white with the FFF hex value. And then let's reference the inner class once more and just change a little bit of stuff here. So we'll make sure it's a max width of 600%, and then let's make let's say margin auto, and then we'll increase the font size overall for both. So font size 170% for both, and then a line height of 1.6 or 160%. Okay, so there we go. Now it's looking pretty close to the original. Let me just try to make 0 for all padding other than top. Close enough, right? Okay, so let's give it now a padding of 10 pixels. Alright, and now let's refresh and compare once more. Okay, so close enough. Now let's drop down and create a note here telling us that we're going to start the navigation menu. So you don't have to do this. It's just nice to section off the styling sometimes if it's designated to, you know, a certain thing like the navigation or an image slider, for example. So we'll reference the navigation with the nav tag. So just write NAV for the HTML5 tag for navigation. And then we're going to tell it to float to the left side of the screen. We're going to give it a padding of 5% top, 5% right, and then 0 bottom and 0 left, and then we'll give it a height of 50 pixels. Okay, so now if we refresh, we'll notice that not a big change, just that we have a little bit more spacing here. Alright, so now let's drop down and let's style the unordered list. So write nav ul, open and close curly brackets, and we'll tell it to list style none, and then float left. So this is going to get rid of the little dots that we see to the left side of the navigation list items there. Okay? Alright. So now let's drop down another line and style the list item itself. So write nav ul for unordered list and then li for list item, open and close the brackets, and then we're going to give this the font family, so it's nav ul li, and we're going to give it the same font family as the paragraph text. So font family railway, and then write serif, or you can do sans serif as the backup font here. Okay, and then let's drop down and give it a font size of 120%. Alright, so now if we refresh, there it's a little larger, but we still have some work to do in styling the links, so let's do that now. So drop down another line, and we'll reference the links with nav ul li a for the ahref tag, and then write color, and we'll just make them white, so the hashtag hex value FFF, text align, or sorry, text decoration none, that's going to take away the underline. Okay, so there we have it, kind of displaying nicely in white, but we need to space them out, and let's give them a little style when we hover over them. So we'll make it text decoration underline on hover. So after A, just write colon hover. Okay, so now as we hover over them, we'll know which one we're on with the underline displaying. Okay, so you can also add different colors or whatever you want, for example, for the hover, but let's drop down and write nav ul and then nav colon active ul. So basically the active means when we are hovering over the icon that we're going to add in just a moment, it's going to be active. So let's give this a padding of 8 pixels top bottom, and then we'll do 0 on the left and right, and then we'll give it a width of 20%, a z index of 1000, so that's going to make it display on top of all other elements. Okay, so there we go. And then drop down and write nav li, and we're going to give it a width of 100%, and then padding 8 pixels. So we're going to, space out the list items. So 8 pixels top, 0 right, 10 pixels bottom, and then 7 pixels left. Okay, and then we'll just give it a margin of 0. So now if we refresh, we'll have a little bit of spacing between the list items here, but we still need to work out the width and the placement of it. So drop down and write nav hover, so nav colon hover UL and write position, or I'm sorry, display block, and then we'll do the position, and then position absolute. So it's always going to display in the same spot. Okay, and now it's starting to take some form here. Okay, so drop down one more line and write for the ID here, write menu dash icon width 30 pixels, height 26 pixels, and then we'll give it the background image. So the image is going to be this navicon.png. So just write background URL and then img/nav-icon.png. And then we'll tell it to center in that menu icon div ID. Okay, so we still got a little bit to do to it. Now, let's give this, or we're going to tell it to display inline block. Okay, so there we go at the top, but right now it's still kind of shifting around on us. So go back up to nav-ul, nav:\active-ul, and write display none. So the unordered list is not going to display then until we hover over the menu icon there. Okay, and then we'll just move it a little bit from the left. So write left 45 pixels and then top 60 pixels. Okay, and then if we refresh, missing one other thing here. Drop down and give this margin 50 pixels and then fix it 50 pixels. So there we go. Okay, that's good. So that's going to push the menu icon away, the 50 pixels top and 50 pixels left, and then let's add back, the left and the top here, which is for the unordered list. So sorry for the confusion, but if you're confused at all, just pause it for a second to make sure that your CSS matches up to what we have here. And then you could add top 60 pixels. Okay, and then if we refresh, there we go, and we have it displaying quite nicely for us, and we can move on to the next section here. Okay, so our top section with the image and everything is good to go. Let's drop down and style the left column section next. Okay, so if you want, you can create a note saying that the navigation ended, so it's easier for you to locate kind of the different styles here in your style sheet. And then let's reference the left column class for section class left column, which is, if we look on the finished version, right here at the start of the About Me section. So that's right here just above the H2 tag with the About Me text. Okay, so we're going to give this a width of 60% of the page. We're going to tell it to float to the left side of the screen, and then we're going to give it some margin. So we'll give it a margin of 4% top, 0 right, 4% bottom, and then 4% on the left. Okay, So now if we refresh this, there we have it displaying to the left of the screen, and we have some space off to the side with the margin at 4%. Alright, and then drop down and let's move over to the sidebar class, which is to the right of it, so the picture can push up next to that text. So we'll give this a width of 26%, and then we'll tell it to float left, and then we'll also give this a margin of 4%, but it's going to be 4% all around. Alright, so we don't want to have the widths when we add them together at 100%, so we can make for the margin also. Okay, so just remember that as a factor when you're doing the width percentages for different sections. You want to leave the percentage for the margin, or if you're going to add that. Alright, so now let's go down and see what our next section is. So this is going to be the 1/3 portfolio sections. Okay, so that is kind of the 1/3 sections here with the images in the portfolio section. Alright, so for these, we're actually not going to give these a margin, but we will give them some padding. Okay, so drop down and write .1-3rd -port, and then we'll give this a width of 29. Actually, we do want to count for the padding. So rather than 33.333, we'll do 29.333 and so on % for the width. And then drop down and give it a padding of 2%. Okay. And then once we tell it to float left, they'll line up next to each other. So float left. Alright, now it's starting to take some form here. And later we'll correct the heading 2 with my portfolio there. You'll see with the clear fix, if you remember from the HTML. And then we'll just say text align center. And actually we don't need that. Right, so the clear fix is going to correct the text. Alright, anyways, let's drop down and we're going to create the hover effect. So when we hover over the image, so 1/3 port image hover, it's going to change the opacity. So it's going to make it a little bit see-through, sort of. So we'll give it an opacity of 0.6, so we'll kind of see 60% of the image and 40% of the white background there. Alright, so it's going to give us a little bit of opacity. Okay, looks good. And then when we click on it, it's going to open up in the new page here. Alright, so drop down and let's do the services list next, or the services paragraph text. So let's reference it in the HTML real quick. So if you remember for this list here in the services section, as well in the contact section, we have a class that's called contact. So right here, section class contact is what we'll reference, and then the paragraph text. So write dot contact and then P for the paragraph, and then we'll tell this to text align center, and then we'll give it a letter spacing of 5 pixels, so that's kind of going to space the letters themselves out. Okay, so there we have it. It's looking quite nice. And then drop down and let's add our clear fix now, so stuff kind of takes its form a little better. So write dot clear fix and then clear both, and now everything will line up much better. Okay, so you can also give the clear fix a height to kind of space stuff out. So that's going to create a little padding wherever we have the clear fix at beneath these sections. Okay, so everything is kind of displaying nicely now. And then let's add some style for the link in the contact text there. So the me at photography.com won't display in this blue, it'll just be black or off black. So just do color and then hashtag 2C, 2C, 2C for the kind of off black color. Then if we refresh, there we have it. You could also do text decoration none to remove the underline if you want from the email address there. Alright, so drop down one more line and let's style the break class. So basically we're going to tell this to display inline here. So there's no line break until we're in the responsive version. So there we go with it displaying inline, and then when we size the website down later, it's going to kind of line up in the center of the page as a list rather than displaying inline. Okay, so now let's go and style the fixed image background or parallax section here that we're seeing. Alright, so that's going to appear right here above the Contact Me section. So we'll need to reference the Parallax class or section class Parallax and then the div class Parallax Inner. Alright, so just write dot for the class Parallax and then open and close the swirly brackets, and we'll do a background URL for the image. So remember, just go to the video description for the next image there, and that's going to be the one that's 30161 for reference. Okay, and then write repeat fixed 100%. Okay, and then drop down and write parallax dash inner for that class. Okay, and then we'll give this a padding top of 17%. So you can make this whatever percent you want, but that's going to create the space that we're seeing. So that's 17% of the screen, or in either direction. Anyways, now let's give it the opacity. Okay, so just write .05 or 50%, and you can change this also if you want for the opacity of the image. So I think it looks kind of cool when it's a little blurry and faded like that. Okay, so now it's looking very similar to the original here. The only thing that we have left, or things, will be the social media links with the icons and the second footer section at the bottom with the copyright photography text. Okay, so let's drop down, and the next thing that we're going to work on are the social media links. So let's take a look at them down here. So those will be nested within the footer tag here. So we have UL class social, and that's what we'll reference in the CSS here. So just write dot social for the social class. Okay, and then we're going to give them a list style type of none Similar to the navigation when we first started styling that, so that's going to take away the dots that are inherent with unordered lists to the left of the links there, or list items. And then write text align center. Okay, so the next thing that we'll style are the list items. So write social li, and we want them to display inline. So they'll be displaying in a horizontal line next to one another. Okay, so if we refresh, there we have them at the bottom, in the center, and inline. And then drop down and let's style, or actually let's take away this this underline so it looks a little better here. So that was contact A, so just write, and this is up to you as I said earlier, but text decoration none. Okay, so that looks a little cleaner now. And then drop down under social li, and we'll style the actual icons. So we'll want to reference social I for the icons with the I class there. So dot social I, open and close the swirly brackets, and then we'll give them a font size of 270%. And if we refresh, there we have them displaying quite large. Now let's just kind of separate them a bit. So we'll give them some margin. So let's add a margin of 1% to the top, 5% right, 7% bottom, and 4% left. And this is going to kind of create some nice separation here. Okay, good. So now let's color them. So let's give them that same kind of off black color, 2C, 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 the hex value here. And then let's give them the color when we hover over them. So it's just going to be like a gray color. So social I colon hover, open and close the brackets, and then color, and we'll do the hex value 606060. If you want to do just kind of like a really plain gray color, it would be all sixes. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. Now let's drop down and do, so also you could reference each individual class when styling these to give them a different color when you hover over them, for example, like the red for Google Plus, for example, but I'll just leave them as the gray for now. And let's move down to the footer class second, so we can do this black section at the bottom with the photography text and copyright symbol. Okay, so just write footer dot second for the second class, and then let's give it the background color. So it's going to be the 2C, 2C, 2C color. So background color. Okay. And let's drop down and style the paragraph text in there. So write footer dot second P for the paragraph text, and then give it a color of white or FFF, and then we'll tell it to text align center, and then we'll give it a margin of 5% all around. Okay, so there we have it. But we just want to create a little more space. So rather than having the margin here, let's do the padding, and that will create the space internally rather than externally. So there we go, and now we have all of our full width style laid out for the photography website. And now we can move on to the responsive styles to give it the mobile feel here that we're seeing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the finished version displaying off to the left, and then the version that we've been working on here on the right. And let's just go through this top to bottom and sort of create the styles to make it appear as we're seeing here on the left for the finished mobile version. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to match the size of these, and then let's drop down underneath the footer second paragraph style here and start our media queries to give the website its responsiveness. So write at media screen and in parentheses max dash width 768 pixels. So everything at 768 pixels and below, it's going to override the styles that we gave it above with these styles that we're about to give it. So any style changes will apply here in the media queries. So let's get started with the menu icon. So that's the little hamburger icon that we're seeing there. And let's change the margin. So we'll give it a margin of 26 pixels on the top, and 0 right, 0 bottom, and 26 pixels on the left from the 50 pixels that we gave it initially. And then we'll just need to add a little more style to the navigation to make it appear how we want resizing it. So write nav ul and then nav active ul, and then we'll just change some of the padding and margin. So to write padding 8 pixels for the top and bottom, and then 0 left right, and then drop down and we'll do rather than, I think it was 40 pixels originally from the top or from the left, we'll do 23 pixels from the left. So that's where the unordered list is going to display, and then let's do 34 pixels from the top rather than 60. I think it was 45 and 60 originally. Okay, and then let's give it a width of 50% of the screen. Alright, so now if we refresh, there we have it displaying just as we want it. Okay, so if we drop down beneath that, let's just move on to the next thing here for us to style, and that's the inner font size. So the class where we're seeing the photography and my pictures paragraph text. So write font size 120%. Okay, and then drop down a little bit and write content heading 1, and let's change the font size specifically for the heading 1 text here. So write font size 180%. Okay, so there we have it. Alright, so we still have some space appearing off to the side, but we'll fix that. It has nothing to do with the top image at this point. So as we work down, it'll sort itself out. And before we go underneath the road picture at the top, let's just change the font size for the paragraph text. So this is going to affect all of the paragraph text throughout the whole website for the mobile version. So just write P font size 120%. Okay, and so that just sized down the My Pictures text there. And now let's drop down underneath the image at the top there and do our heading 2 text. Okay, so let's give that a font size of 160%. Alright, so that looks a little better there, and we see that the font, the paragraph text is resized. And staying in line with everything, let's do the left column section next that the About Me heading 2 and paragraph text is in. So we'll give that a width of 100%. Okay, so if we refresh, there we have it, but we have some margin to the left, so it's going to push off the side of the screen there. Let's actually give it a width of 96%. Okay, so now it's looking a little better, but let's give it some margin on, or I'm sorry, some padding on either side. So padding 0 top bottom, padding 2% left right, along with some margin. Okay, so margin 0 top, 0 right, 3% bottom, 0 left. Okay, so now we're talking. Now we just have the padding on either side, and the margin that was inherent has gone away on the left side, for example. Okay, so next let's move down to the sidebar class, which the image we're seeing there of the girl with the hat is inside of. So write dot sidebar. Okay, and then let's give this a width of 96%, and then margin 0 auto to display it in the center. And save. And let's give the image itself, so this happens with every image, padding of 2% all around. Okay, so now if we refresh, we should have the image with a little bit of padding on either side rather than it taking up the full screen on the mobile version or iPad, for example. Alright, so now let's do the 1/3 portfolio sections. Okay, so these 6 images. So write dot 1-3 port, and then we'll give this also a width of 96%. And then margin 0 auto to center it on the page. And then we'll give it a padding of 0 because we already have the padding for the image. Okay, so that's looking quite nice, like the original. Alright, and then for the services section, we don't really need to do anything. Or actually, yes we do. Basically what we want to do is we want to take that break class that we had, if you remember, and we'll make it display block rather than inline. So write dot break and display block. So they're going to display on top of one another, blocked rather than inline horizontally. Okay, so that affected both of the contact sections. For the parallax section, this we can't get to display on the iPhone as we see it here displaying for us on my desktop computer like this. So we're just going to tell that to display none, and then let's resize the font icons. So we'll give them a font size of 170%. Okay, so now if we save it and refresh, there we have our icons lining up. They're pushed off to the right a little bit there. That's okay. Okay, so that does it for the photography website for the mobile version that we're seeing here on the right, and the desktop version, of course, on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a quick look through it and enjoy what we just created, but I want to thank you for sticking around with me for this full hour and a half plus. So if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe and share it with your followers or friends. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.